You put Johnny Depp on the stand. It's always a high-risk strategy. It worked for you. If you were representing Sean Diddy Combs, would you put him up?
Turning now to New York, opening statements have officially begun in the trial against Sean Diddy Combs. The charges, including trafficking and racketeering, carry a possible life sentence behind bars.
I think in this case, I don't think he's got any choice. Given that video, he's got to explain it. He's got to say that he's terribly sorry for it, but that was an aberration. That's not who he is. He simply has to say that.
Diddy's court.
Prosecutor Emily Johnson said the public knew Diddy as a larger-than-life business mogul, but behind the scenes, he was forcing women into using violence and drugs to keep them in line. She said Combs had an inner circle that helped him commit sex crimes, other crimes, things like arson and kidnapping. And then came the graphic details from what we now know are called the Freakoffs.
Well, we put Johnny up because he was telling the truth. So that was a very easy decision to make, and he had the burden of proof, and frankly, we couldn't have stopped him even if we wanted to, but we didn't want to. Telling the truth as he did over several days, you're not telling the truth, skilled attorneys on the other side are going to puncture that. I believe in that system. Built a reputation as one of the most talented actors in Hollywood. A respected artist whose name was associated with success at the box office. Today, his name is associated with a lie.
It's only the 19 jurors have been qualified. The magic number here is 45 because once the panel reaches that number, the prosecutions and Combs' defense lawyers will use their strikes to get this group down to 12 jurors and a number of alternates. Here's what we know about those who have qualified so far. 2 women have said that they have been sexually assaulted decades ago in the past. They were allowed to continue on. And another woman who said that she had once been arrested for shoplifting for stealing a wand from Harry Potter's world.
What happens when the lawyer who helped Johnny Depp beat Amber Heard suddenly shows up at Diddy's criminal trial? That's not just a headline. It's real life. Ben Chu just walked into a courtroom where tensions are already running high. And Diddy? He wasn't prepared. He didn't even receive any notice. Behind closed doors, sources say he lost control. Because this isn't merely a civil case with tabloids watching. This is a criminal trial with federal prosecutors, serious charges, and a video that changed everything.
At Universal Studios, also in that panel, several jurors were dismissed, including one who had seen that hotel surveillance video. She had called it damning evidence, and for that reason, the judge had excused her from the panel. Jury selection will continue Tuesday morning until they get to the magic number 45 and go through those strikes.
From the moment jury selection began, the courtroom was on edge. Over 160 potential jurors were summoned. 49 were dismissed right away. The remaining candidates were grilled with dozens of invasive questions. Where do they get their news? What do they think of Diddy? Could they handle explicit evidence? Could they stay neutral? Some said they couldn't. One woman said she'd been sexually assaulted and admitted she'd leaned toward believing survivors. Another was dismissed after confessing she'd seen the infamous Cassie hotel video and called it damning. The court narrowed the list down to 35 jurors from every walk of life. Teachers, social workers, even a woman who once got arrested for stealing a Harry Potter wand at Universal Studios. And just when things were finally moving forward, the judge changed the game. That's when the judge invited Ben Chu, the high-profile lawyer who defended Johnny Depp, to offer insight on celebrity trials.
We'll have a member of the team going through the social media of these jurors, making sure they didn't do anything. I mean, how much research can you do in terms of, did they search for something? Did they say something? I always am curious about that because you come into court the next day and you always hear a prosecutor or defense attorney say, court, we have an issue we would like to bring to your attention. Juror number 5 was looking at, it's like, how did they find that out?
It was unexpected. Diddy's legal team wasn't informed. And when Diddy found out, he reportedly flipped out. Why? Because Chu is linked to courtroom victories and widespread public support. Having him present could influence the jury's perception of celebrity defendants, even subconsciously. Moreover, it's not merely a public relations strategy. Behind the scenes, Diddy's lawyers are concerned that this action could paint him as guilty even before opening arguments begin. So who are the people deciding Diddy's fate? It's a strange mix. Some say they liked him back in his making the band era, while others openly dislike him. A few barely know who he is. One juror had to be removed after the court found out they worked for HBO, the same network that just released a documentary on Diddy. Another juror admitted ties to a criminal defense advocacy group, yet was still allowed to stay.
Is that what happens?
Well, it is in a high-stakes case like this. I mean, as you know, not all clients have the resources to hire, jury consultants and to hire investigators. But in this case, you have a defendant who could theoretically be sentenced to life in prison, who has the means. So I'm sure, or I would think, that his counsel have a team of investigators following the jurors around to the extent they can and looking for any electronic footprint.
Jury consultants are scrutinizing their social media accounts for any signs of bias. Given Diddy's influence, you can bet he has investigators monitoring every online move. However, all this effort may not suffice because the prosecution introduced evidence in court that speaks louder than bias. In 2016, Diddy was caught on hotel surveillance video assaulting his then-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. CNN aired it, and the public watched in horror. The footage shows Diddy knocking Cassie to the ground, kicking her and dragging her. Now it's officially part of the prosecution's evidence. Jurors were warned that they would see explicit photos, graphic footage, and hear disturbing testimony. Some expressed discomfort, but agreed to stay. Prosecutors argue that this isn't just a one-time mistake. It's part of a disturbing pattern that stretches back decades. According to court filings, Diddy hosted drug-fueled orgies he called freakoffs, ketamine, mushrooms. Cameras are hidden in the room. Women allegedly coerced.
Now, I mentioned before how can you believe the jurors? How do you know they're telling the truth? Well, I'll tell you what we've seen so far in the Combs jury selection process, you have what seems to be a lot of honesty, okay? Because you had one prospective juror who told the court that she had been sexually assaulted as a teenager, and that if the defense brings up at trial that, look, these alleged victims didn't report what they say happened to them, this juror indicated they would understand why.
Then blackmailed using the footage. One rapper, Chopper, spoke out recently. He said the vibe at these parties was simple. What happens here stays here. Big-name celebrities attended. Everyone knew the code. Even MTV insiders are talking. One former cameraman said Diddy invited him to his office and made an explicit advance. The cameraman quit immediately and never returned. These aren't rumors anymore. They're stories that keep piling up, and the jury will hear all of them. Diddy's team says the story has been twisted. They claim the hotel video depicts a toxic relationship, not trafficking, asserting that the freakoffs were merely wild parties between consenting adults. They're portraying Diddy as a flawed man, not a criminal. However, when the defense attempted to explain this in court, the judge quickly shut them down. "What's love got to do with kicking someone?" he asked. It was a brutal moment, one that might resonate in jurors' minds for the remainder of the trial.
Day 2 of jury selection in the racketeering and sex trafficking trial of Sean Combs, seen in court with graying hair. Federal prosecutors are trying to prove Combs used his power, wealth, and fame to force women into drug-fueled orgies he called freakoffs and then threaten them into silence.
Cassie's lawsuit was settled within 24 hours, but it wasn't the end. At least 11 more women have now come forward, each with their own story. Allegations of drugs, violence, guns, even being dangled over balconies. One survivor said Diddy used her phone to record a freak-off, then threatened her when she tried to leave. Others say he kept recordings to ensure silence. Federal investigators are building a case that looks less like a scandal and more like organized crime. Now comes the preemptive strike phase. Both sides can remove jurors without giving a reason, as long as it's not related to race or gender. Diddy is actively involved. Insiders say he nods or shakes his head during jury questioning, signaling to his attorneys. This is his last chance to shape the outcome, to pick a jury that might see him as misunderstood, not monstrous. Because when the trial starts, there's no more room to spin. This trial isn't just about one man's mistakes. It's about power unchecked, about silence bought through fear, and about what happens when fame meets darkness. Diddy has denied everything, but the courtroom is stacked with evidence, witnesses, and a jury that's already seen too much. Whether he walks free or falls from grace, one thing is certain: Hollywood is watching, and so is the world.